You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast with me, John Hall in New York.
And me, Charles Foley in Minneapolis.
Welcome back, Charles. You've just got back from Tanzania. It's good to see your face. I've missed you.
Yes, indeed. Well, I had a pretty good month in Tanzania, and it's always great to be back in the country. And I spent some time in the Tarangire ecosystem and the Serengeti ecosystem, and yeah, fabulous as always. And I know that many mammal watchers they focus on seeing species diversity, but if you haven't visited northern Tanzania, I highly recommend that you do, because it just offers some of the best wildlife spectacle on the planet. So, for instance, the Serengeti, it's just vast, and it has a massive density of animals. We saw numerous big cats, lots and lots of lions and leopards, and we had 4 serval in one afternoon, as well as great rhino behavior. And of course, the ecosystem has 23 different species of ungulates. And Tarangire was also great. I saw large numbers of lesser kudu. That's the most I've ever seen. And this is one of the most beautiful ungulate species. They have a slate gray body and white stripes, and the males have amazing horns. And they seem to be doing really well in the ecosystem at the moment. And I spent a lot of time on community lands. These are areas called wildlife management areas, or WMAs, which were set up by communities for wildlife tourism. And some of these WMAs, certainly in the north, are starting to look really good. Basically, you can see the same complement of wildlife species as in the national parks, though lower densities, but they're cheaper to enter. There are very few people in these WMAs. You feel as though you've got the whole place to yourself, and you can do walks, you can do night drives, etc. So they're definitely well worth a visit if you're going to Tanzania. And if you haven't been to northern Tanzania, I highly recommend it. It's a place where every mammal watcher should visit at least once. And I know it's quite expensive, much more expensive than South Africa, for instance. But really, if you can afford a trip, you certainly won't regret it. And John, you also seem to have had a wonderful time in Bolivia, seeing some remarkable species.
Yeah, no, I'm glad Tanzania went so well, Charles. It's great. And this WMA thing taking off is fantastic, because for people who want to look for the smaller things for less money, that sounds like the place to do it. Bolivia was a lot of fun. Big thanks to Nick from Nick's Adventures Bolivia for setting the whole thing up, and to the group I was with, who were also a great company. Yeah, we saw we were really chasing the primates there, and we got all the primate targets plus a bonus one. We got a Medidi titi monkey that we didn't think we'd see, because it would require quite a long detour, but we found a new site and got that one. The country is in a bit of a mess, it seems, environmentally. It seems to be going backwards, whereas you get the sense a lot of the rest of the region is making progress. But the smoke was thick in the air when we landed at Santa Cruz. Nick McPhee was saying they've lost 10 million hectares of land to fire this year. A lot of it seems to be deliberate burning. A lot of it by sort of smallholders moving down from the Andes to the lowlands and basically taking the land with government sanction. That's the story we heard. So that's a real pity, and I hope something can turn around, because they just can't sustain that kind of loss, obviously. But where there is forest left, the wildlife was thick on the ground. We didn't try for the cats, which of course Bolivia is now quite famous for its jaguars and its jaguarundis, and you were there a few months ago. But we ended up in Pando on the Peruvian border looking for Geldes monkeys, which is probably like the only site I know for that species that's reliable. And we saw them really well on the first morning.
The first morning?
Yeah, the first morning. Yeah, went right there and we got them. Really nice views for that half an hour. Got some good pictures. And they're crazy little things. They're really cool looking. But the funny story from there was the chief monkey spotter and cook and caretaker was a lovely Brazilian guy called Canella. Super nice guy that Cheryl talked about. Cheryl Antonucci talked about in her report. He's fantastic with the monkeys, but just a wonderful human being. Anyway, the shower at the place in Panda, this research station, was just a plank of wood over a small stream with a bucket to sort of fish river water out to tip over your head. And Canella goes down there on the first evening. It's after dark and we're having dinner, finishing dinner. And then we hear his screams like echoing through the forest, which Nick translated very quickly into large snake, help. So we charged down there. Some of us charged more quickly than me, and I actually missed what some of the others saw. But apparently Canella was mid shower and the water went cloudy under his feet. So he looked down thinking it was just a stingray. But it wasn't a stingray, and he turned around and he saw his snake looking at him, head out of the water, just staring at him. And it was a 5 meter, that's what, 18-foot anaconda that was a green anaconda that was massive. The first green anaconda Nick had seen in Bolivia. He got a pretty bad cell phone video of it, very, very excited, sort of classic Steve Irwin kind of footage. But this thing was wider than the river, was thick as my leg. And I can well imagine why Canella was so shocked to see that mid-shower. So I don't think any of us washed after that. But yeah, that was like a really fun place, and just lovely people. The local guides were fantastic, and so much potential there for mammal watching community, sort of mammal watching. So I hope Nick continues to do well and the business grows.
Yeah, it's no, Nick is absolutely snake mad.
Yeah.
He's always playing around with dangerous snakes, but. Great to hear that you saw the Geldies first day. I did an expedition when I was at Oxford to Pando in 1987, and I think it took us 2 or 3 weeks of going out every single day in the forest before we saw our first ones. So they're not the easiest primates to find, but they are absolutely gorgeous, just jet black with those little yellow eyes.
Yeah, crazy. They're being studied there. There's a grid. So people were out in July, and so Canella is the person who goes out with all the research. So he knows exactly the grids and he knows all the animals' movements, which certainly helped. They'd be hard things to run into, I think. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. Well done.
Well, I'm very pleased that Charles and I are joined today by 2 good friends of mine from Thailand. Alexander Coke Smith, who many of you will know from Facebook and the website, and Jirayu Ekkul, also known as Tor, is his nickname, another friend of mine who runs his own travel company in Thailand. I first met Coke in, I don't know, 2010, was it, Coke, probably?
Or 9. Actually, I moved to Asia in 2010, so 2008, maybe.
First met Coke in 2008, I stand corrected. I was heading over to Washington State for work, and Coke got in touch saying, come and stay, I can show you a mountain beaver at my place on the Olympic Peninsula. And he showed me one. We drank several bottles of wine. It was a really nice weekend, and the rest is history. Coke has been a school teacher all his career, but he's done a bunch of other things as well at the same time. He's traveled very, very extensively. He was a major insect collector for a while. He had one of the biggest beetle collections ever assembled. He ran his own nature tour company at the same time as being a teacher. And in 2010, you just said, Coke, you left the States, moved to China, traveled and taught there, and now you've been in Bangkok for what, the last 10 years, I guess?
11 years now. God, 11 years. Yeah.
11 years. Tor is as I said, he runs his own company in Thailand. He was born in the US, did some education there, was also educated in Australia, but for the last 12 years has been running Wild Encounter Thailand, which is now split into two companies, one focusing on ecotourism in Thailand, and another newer company now focusing on worldwide exploration. There's lots more to say, but I haven't got time. So welcome both of you to the podcast. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you all.
Welcome, guys. Very nice to meet you. So perhaps we could start with the two of you telling us how you got interested in wildlife. Tor, why don't we start with you first?
First of things, I might be different than other people. My family is photographers that's love photographing a lot. But I actually study civil engineering with the MIT in Melbourne that time. But East Coast is sea, beach, sun. So, and it's the scuba capital. So, I start scuba diving, and then I'd never get into really study much. I like, going out, enjoy surfing, scuba diving. And then I turned my career into scuba diving instructor. So I start wildlife actually from underwater. That's how I started. And then whales and dolphin has been my favorite since when I was a child with my dad take me to SeaWorld, at that time, and I love killer whales, orca and stuff. And then, when you connected with the sea and then, you start to photograph. I got my first camera, collect my money and just bought the housings and then start from there, become like underwater photographers, scuba diving instructor. And then I slowly going up on the land. That's how I started, I started everything with whales. And later on, when you're doing scuba, you learn that you can't really whale watch with scuba. It doesn't go together. And that time, about 10 years ago, I think there's only some operator that doing free diving, whale swimming that time in Sri Lanka, in Tonga, a long, long time ago. Actually, blue whales and humpback is actually my first mammals that I seriously taken, and see it. And then when I returned to Thailand, we heard there's a whales outside, just not far from Bangkok, just right edge, about like 2 hours drive. It starts from the bird watcher that people who go to see the great cormorant, because it's really rare in Thailand during that time. So, and they said there was a whale. I didn't even believe it myself that there was the whale actually nearby, just in the Gulf of Thailand. So we took the boat out. It was a long-tail boat, fishing boat, like a couple $100, and there's a whale. It's amazing. And I didn't even know what kind of whales that time. It looked not so big, but the strangest thing is that they do some really cool behavior that they reach up with their face up high and then slowly open the mouth, and it hang for a certain periods of time, I would say. But when I'm talking to the local, they say this is common and it's called Bruder's whale. And I start to talk to expert that, how can the whales live in this area? And then from that, then I start my professional level. We start to develop all the whale watching, the commercial whale watching, the educational whale watching with experts from London. And then it become a company. And later on, when I start whale watch, so I start to study about mammals. And then when I start to settle permanently in Thailand, I start to go into the forest. And then that's how I start land mammals.
Just one quick question, because we were going to talk about Eden's whales again. But you talk about this trap feeding where the whales come up vertically and hang.
Yeah, and hang.
Fly hopping. Now, somebody told me that this was a response to pollution in the Gulf of Thailand. Is that true?
Yes, part of it is true, because there were actually one paper. It was conducted by a federal Thai researcher with, I think, Japanese researcher, but it's almost 10 years back, that because Gulf of Thailand average depth, it's about only 20 meters. And there was actually 4 rivers coming out. It's very small basin, 250 kilometers of coastline, all fresh water from the mainland pouring down, especially in the rainy season right now. So I think the oxygen level in certain depth is different. Also with pollutions and with chemicals, some certain species of prey, such as anchovies or elishas, small fish, they live in certain levels of water. It's just not like blue oceans like in Baja, Mexico, that there's a bed ball swimming in the middle of the, mid-water, and the whale just come and scoop. Instead, these, we think when the pollution is really high, the bottoms of the seabed is dead. So more oxygens are in the higher, near the surface. So that's why the whale choose to reach the surface to open up its mouth. But what I wonder is why they have to open up for a really, really long time, which doesn't make sense comparing to the typical lunch feeding of the humpback. And that's we're gonna have a long discussion in a couple of weeks when experts are coming in.
As far as my interest, it started off as a child. Basically, my family is we're all basically everybody's a teacher. And so I grew up with the 3 to 4 months off every year, and we had these massive family vacations. And my father and mother were just fascinated with camping. So we were always going out to the wilderness. And at that time I was growing up in California. So we were always out in the desert, up in the mountains, and so on. And both my parents were really into photographing chipmunks and little furry critters up in the hills. So I grew up kind of fascinated with wildlife. And then that kind of in university transferred over to insects. So I was really into insects for a long period of time. And I traveled the world, collecting thousands and thousands of insects for my collection and for trade. And at that time I was actually selling insects to collectors too. I was kind of like the Alfred Russel Wallace of the 20th century, and doing kind of what he did. But at the same time, I've started to see quite a lot of birds, quite a lot of mammals. And one day, I can't remember when it was. John, you'll have to tell me exactly when it was. When did you start your website? 2007?
I started in 2000, late 2005.
2005. Must have been 2005. I saw your website. And at that moment, I thought, oh my God, this is what I want. I want to go out and see as many mammals as possible. So this is way before I think I even contacted you. And so I was really, really enamored with your website. And kind of at the same time, but a little bit before, I was spending so much money on my insect travels and various travels like that were nature oriented. And my wife, she said, God, Coke, we spend so much of our money on traveling. How can we do this? We're constantly just spending every liquid dollar we have on travel, nature travel too. And she said, you got to make it pay for itself. And I thought that was a fair request. So I developed my nature company. And at the time, La Selva Expeditions was my company. It ran for about 10 years. We were selling trips mainly for, the big safari countries like, we sold quite a lot of trips to Africa, and I led quite a few trips to Africa and South America to the Pantanal. We were one of the first groups into the Pantanal in the early 90s. Didn't do too well in the Pantanal, but we sold Antarctica and things like that. So I really got hooked into mammals. And so it was that transition between insects to mammals. And ever since then, your website has probably cost me $1 million for all the trips. Every time I see a trip report, I'm like, oh my God, there goes another 20,000 or whatever. And so thanks a lot, John. You've kept me a poor person my whole life here. So, but that kind of got me into it. Now, I'm, I think calling me a fanatic wouldn't be a misstatement, actually. I think, yeah. So I spend most of my time now, if I have some free time, usually for where I live in Bangkok, it takes a little bit of time to get out to where the mammals are. So I have to have 3 days at a time. Then I'll go to King Krachan and do that. But then every year I plan big trips to go see the mammals.
And I should just add that if you haven't seen it, Coke is an exceptional photographer. So we'll put a link in the notes to his website in case you haven't seen his photography, but absolutely outstanding. You have a huge collection of images.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, it drives me nuts every time I see your photos, Coke, because my very best photos are just nothing compared to your worst ones.
Every time I see Coke's pictures, I want to sell my camera and give up. I don't know the secret. So, Tor, you've talked a little bit about the Eden's whales in the Gulf of Thailand. What other cetaceans occur in the Gulf and around Thailand that can be seen?
I would split into two because Thailand has two different type of two different sides of the sea. Our main core area, we call the Gulf of Thailand, which is part of South China Sea. This is what we're doing about the highest concentration comparing to like the area, the Brutus whale, which now you can officially call it Eden's, and the other side is the Andaman Sea, which is, I would say, it's one of the most uncharted in terms of cetaceans wise. It's part of Indian Oceans. In total, for our country's list, we have about 28 species. Not much comparing to other places, because comparing to other places in the world, we live in shallow water area. There are no such a deep trench or continental shelf. Edenville in the Gulf is very interesting due to their, the geographical area of the Gulf and the ecosystem of the Gulf itself. But in the Andaman, it's very interesting. So we've seen some of the most unique species that I ever encountered. For examples, like, for the beginning, I think it's exactly Christmas of last year, so 2023, we got the first albino Omurat's whale ever record probably in the world.
Amur as well,
yes, albino, yes. Yeah. So that's probably the only one that we know of. And it's still probably reoccurrent. So we don't know it's a residence or it's short migratory. Maybe they could swim up to Burmese coastline. But normally Omurat's whale don't go offshore much as well. If you know about Omurats, and they tend to stick in some certain place. But again, that area is so uncharted, and we have seen one of the most weirdest looking dolphins. Bob probably showed you already. It's a long-beak common dolphin, but it's almost, I would say it's pinocchioensis. It's like a dinosaur. It doesn't look like a dolphin, honestly. Like the beak comparing to its body's length, it's amazing, and I have no clue what I'm looking at. So I think in terms of exploring on this area, we have so much potentials and so much yet to learn. Yeah. So our main core program is the whale watch in the Gulf, but we also do a lot of deep sea pelagic research on our other sites, and we expect to increase our survey more as well, because the area was so vast. And apparently in Southeast Asia, you can barely find cetaceans experts.
Sure. One question, because you run like mainland mammal trips and you run the cetacean trips. How does it break down? Do most of your clients come to see cetaceans, or is it 50-50, or is it more on the mainland mammal side?
So right now we split, but yes, I think cetaceans, the Edenville is still top. We are probably right now on the only one, and we have worldwide clients, from expert to just family. They just want to see trap feeding. BBC is filming with us, Nat Geo is filming with us, NHK is filming with us, and with this behavior, the trap feeding things, we run at least eight months a year. Now, 8 months a year now. It's a seasonal for feeding whales, and we accept more than about 100 customers per week.
100 a week.
Yeah, 100 customers for a week. Yeah, so we have a really solid teams, about 12 crews. Now we have two launching site, 2 pier. Next year we're gonna increase this into 3 pier because we discover another feeding site. So we're expanding, and the population in the Gulf itself, just this tiny Gulf, we are reaching 102 individuals of the whales.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really very constant. I think it's very dense comparing to like those in Baja, California, or even the Gulf of New Zealand, Haruki Gulf in New Zealand. This is very concentrated. So you have almost 90% chance of going out and see it. And if it's rainy season, like June, July, August, September, the feeding almost 90% to see feeding within these 4 months. So for that, I think it's pretty much solid. And worldwide researchers, photographers come just to photograph for these behaviors. But for mammals, land mammal, honestly, we just started for just maybe no more than 3 or 4 years. Unlucky we got COVID, but now we start to bounce back slowly. But we get into more area. Mammal watching starting to expand every place in the world now. Before we only had bird customer, which we are not experts. But lately, from words to words, from websites like mammalwatching.com, and I think we get more inquiry about mammals, land mammals, for example, and also our experts are in the south, because now we have a regular trip to the deep south peninsula Thailand, which connect to Malaysia border. You can access more, with the Sundaik species. I think now we get more specialized tour. For example, small mammal tours. We have more specialized in bats tour. All the cave and stuff. We explore more. So I think we for land mammal we going up gradually, but still it's not a core unit as the whale watch. That's why we split into totally two department, not counting the international trips. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, Coke, you've traveled extensively all around the world, but what about in Thailand? What are some of your favorite mammal watching places in Thailand?
Thailand, an incredibly diverse area. Biodiversity ranks it probably in the top 10 of the world. But seeing mammals can be actually quite a challenge. And so there's a few places that I would recommend to go if you just want to get a taste of Thailand, so to speak. For example, if you went into places like Khao Yai, you could probably rack up 20 species in a good day. Same with Keng Krachan National Park. Those are two places that are within about 3 hours or so from Bangkok. Easy to get into. The infrastructure is very good. You can get in, and if you know how to look for animals, you'll find them. If you go with a guide, you'll have even better luck. I think avoiding places like Khao Yai on the weekend would be highly advised, because it's just so crowded. There can be tens of thousands of people in the park. Keng Krachan, usually not that bad. But it's still pretty impacted on the weekends. But you can actually still see quite a bit. But my personal favorites are down in the south. I love Halabala. They've had some issues recently that make visiting it maybe even impossible. Tour, is it open yet?
It's opening soon.
Yeah, okay, good. Because I'd love to support that place as much as possible. Those people work really hard, and it is a gem of the Thai wildlife reserves. I mean, I love it, absolutely love it there. I can have a day there where I don't even see that many mammals, but I'm just so happy to be there. It's so beautiful. It's true tropical rainforest, which is not the case near Bangkok. It's subtropical here, but it's just an amazing place. And for me, I've recently discovered, and I know Tour, you've been taking people there too. Chulalakon, is it Chulalakon 9 and 10? Is that right?
Julapon.
Yeah, Julapon. Yeah. Amazing places. And I think you're going to start to see more information on mammals, mammal watching from people like me and Tour and other people who will go there. It's not newly discovered by Thai people by any stretch, but it's definitely new on the mammal scene, I think. And it's in the deep south. It's beautiful rainforest and scenic too. So I expect a lot more happening there. But I also like Khao Luang National Park. Khao Luang is it's a huge stretch of the Tenasserim Mountains that you find that basically goes down the Kra Peninsula. I think that's what it's called. From basically Surat Thani all the way down into maybe even to Malaysia, I think. And it's an incredibly biodiverse hotspot. It's really one of the world's top bio hotspots. It's pretty untapped for tourism, and there's still new species to be discovered. There are loads of new species to be discovered in a place like that. And I love exploring the Khao Luang area. Now I don't know if you saw my post just recently, but my wife and I, we bought a parcel of land that abuts the Khao Luang National Park. It's about 50 meters away from the actual park, and we bought it so I could actually restore it to become kind of a little miniature tropical rainforest fragment that's associated with an adjacent national park. And I'm starting to see a lot of influx of wildlife that's coming in from the national park into the property there. And I just did it as kind of an experiment because it was super cheap. The land at that time had really weak title, and I got it for a song. And just waiting now for it to become even more diverse. And basically, it will never be contiguous with the park, but it's definitely close enough to where we get a lot of the small mammals coming in. And that Khao Luang area, I've explored many of the different entry points from the road. And my favorite entry point would be Krung Tin. Krung Chin waterfalls area, and that's already been really popular for birds. It's a birder hotspot for sure, but on a good day there, you could come away with critters like the Sunda Kologo, Sunda Slow Loris. I've seen pangolin there, and that was one of my first animals that I saw there. Elephants are still found there. The whole litany of the squirrels, the low squirrel, slender squirrel, both of the giant squirrels. You'll get just loads of those types of mammals in that particular park, and it's really accessible. At night, you can get the small tooth civets. I've seen the large Indian, I think, was one of the species I saw there, civet. It's a remarkable place, and I like it because you can go in. They're very welcoming there. It's got good infrastructure, and you can just hike the trail, and it's a magnificent trail, and you'll do well. You'll do well. So Khao Luang, I think, is one of the places I plan on retiring here in Thailand, but that's going to be one of the places I visit probably until the day I can't walk anymore. It's one of my favorite places. And I can't remember, John, had you ever been to Khao Luang yet?
I don't think so. No, pretty sure I haven't.
Not to say that Khao Sok isn't really nice too. I think Khao Sok is a remarkable place.
Yeah.
You can actually, if you get into the boats and actually go up to Klong Sen, and you have to take a boat to get into it. I suppose you could trek, but I don't know any way to do that. But you take the boats, and it's not that uncommon for people to see gaur and even Malayan tapir.
It has been the Malayan tapir just came out like last week, just during because Khao Sok is just like they say it's like the Amazon of Thailand, so you have to take the boat to waterways and stuff. You can see big megafaunas there a lot, and further rarest species. Last year during a night walk on Khao Sok Pass, people see a mainland clouded leopard that's photographed, banded lynxing, banded civet.
Can't forget Huay Ka Keng either. I mean, of course, that's probably the pinnacle of Thailand too. I oftentimes don't recommend that for people because you can't have the permit. The permits can be tricky to get. The public area is pretty good, but I think to get a better chance at some of the, like the tiger and the leopards and whatnot, you kind of got to get into the interior, into the core area, I think.
You know what? My forecast is not wrong, you're gonna have chance to see the Indo-Chinese tiger more and more. The program is doing, I would say, too good. When they're closing the core area, not allowing publics, but now they start to have a night safari and the height of the sanctuaries. For example, last year the whole entire Indo-Chinese tiger family come out and eat the kills at the Peacock Tower.
Wow.
Yeah, so with influx and number of tigers increasing, they're gonna start coming out more towards the buffer zone. So I think in a couple of years you have more sightings of Indo-Chinese tiger out of the core area. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, the territories of the tigers are starting to be so impacted. They're forcing all the younger ones towards the periphery, and you're seeing tigers now in the villages. So far, there hasn't been like in India where they've had human tiger conflict, as far as I know. Tour might know more about that, but I don't think they've had any people killed as a result of that. But he's definitely right. They're starting to see a lot more tigers outside.
So I was back in Thailand in January and I saw you both, and I went to Khao Yai with Tor, and I was absolutely gobsmacked would be the English word, I guess, at the changes around Khao Yai. There was nothing there, I think, when I used to go, but now it's like a US national park with a little town outside, huge tourism growth. Can you both of you talk a bit about where this growth has come from? Is it among the Thais? And what does this mean for conservation in Thailand?
I think it's catch-22 for me. I mean, honestly, I think like Southeast Asian countries, from my point of view, we are still laid back in terms of proper wildlife conservation. One thing is good, it start to generate incomes and people start to see value of wildlife. And I have to admit it's a trend now that these days people start to go out to nature If you were back in 10, 20 years ago, local Southeast Asian prefer department store, prefer like to go see movie in the theater, but now they're back to basic. The camping become the trends. Nature photography, wildlife photography is more reachable within the technologies, like 10, 20 years when we were start doing. I think it's very difficult to get a super telephotos lens, right? It's almost cost $500,000 to get like 600, 500 millimeters. But now everything is so easy. All the equipment is easier to reach, with the, now you can have like 100, 400s, and, with this kind of thing, it's make more, wildlife watching, mammal watching, bird watching is more recreation, and it's more reachable to people as well, more informations on internet as well. Of course, people going to the park, it make benefits to the wildlife and conservation. But in other terms, I think the behaviors of tourists comparing to Europeans, comparing to Americans, for wildlife, we have much to work on, behavior, respect on wildlife, understand its nature, not too forcibly doing something, or, when the Asian elephants come, typical tourists will run into them with the iPhone. So there are yes and no in this, yeah. On my point of view, but it's getting good. It's getting better, and people are more into wildlife, are more into nature, more and more these days. Yes.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's a mixed bag, right? I think when I first started coming to my first trip, I think to Kankrachan must have been around 2004, 2005. And it was a dirt road for most of the way, even into Bactrian Camp. And it was actually a couple spots there could have been a 4-wheel drive track. It was so rocky and pretty bad road. And I remember that it was, and I'd gone several times during those years, early years. And I remember seeing me and a couple of Farang with big lenses, with big cameras and whatnot. And it would be really rare to see Thai people with it. And now it's unbelievable how many Thai people have the big lenses, and people complain. Don't get me wrong, people complain about that. Oh, the birders are going to kill the nest and whatnot. And that does happen, but I look at that as those folks are 99% of the birders and the photographers I see here in Thailand are very educated. They're fairly well off. They vote and they care about having this this nature available to them so they can shoot. It's actually really competitive here in Thailand to get the best action shot, right? And so I see this enthusiasm by Thai people that is, I think, a good thing, really, because I think these people, by doing that, become enamored with nature. They love the nature, and they want that shot. So what if they're only interested in that shot? They're out there in nature. Their families usually tagging along with them. The children of these photographers end up picking a camera up eventually, and it becomes kind of it's like a continuation. It passes on from the generations, and I see Thailand getting up to speed. Yeah, you're right, Tour. Sometimes the etiquette, the behavior of the tourists is it's a little ridiculous. Yeah. But you go to Yellowstone, you'll see that too. It's kind of like that too. But at the same time, I see Thai people starting to get better. And I think it just takes education and time. The parks tend not to do too much. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't really police in the sense that if they see someone doing something wrong, they wouldn't necessarily tell them like they would in Europe. The rangers would tell you.
Enforcement. Yeah, enforcement.
Yeah.
There are rules, but one thing we have to admit, the authorities are lacking of enforcement.
Yeah, they're shy. They're afraid of picking on someone too rich to cause them a trouble. You know what I mean? I understand. I do understand where they're coming from. I think in a way, I look at a place like Khao Yai. You mentioned Khao Yai specifically, is almost a place that gets sacrificed to a degree because that place has literally, I'm sure it's millions of tourists every year. And those people come away with like, wow, Thailand's got a lot of nature parks. They may not go to all these esoteric little parks here and there, but they're happy that they're there, and they're more likely to have a preservation ethic because of their experiences at Khao Yai. So, we have these multiple use areas in American national parks, right? That we literally, the term was sacrifice to the public, just to get them in there and get them happy to be in these places. And it has a long-term effect of having people appreciate the park.
We are wildlife watcher, right? I mean, birds. Sometimes I got questions like, what the national parks in Thailand are for? Because sometimes I think they put, if they put tourists come first, so they let too much camping ground. I think it's about carrying capacity as well. They don't zone it. So instead of the national parks to conserve wildlife, the national park it's a recreational park for humans, and sometimes it push wildlife inside to further different areas. So it's, I think at the end, it's management for the park is also problematic in still in this country, and that's why me and Co like the south more than the mainstream park, because it's much less tourists. And if you're in the park in the deep south, you can feel that wildlife is much more undisturbed.
Yeah. It's there, and it's near the road oftentimes too. So true.
Point about sort of like the sacrificial park, because you do need to ensure that people can get out and see the animals in their country, right? Because without that, they're never going to develop that link and that enthusiasm for nature conservation. But when there's tens of thousands of people doing that, then you really feel the impact.
Yes, you do.
But ultimately, if it means that other large areas in the country are then set aside for conservation, and truly set aside for conservation, then perhaps in the end it's worth it.
Yeah. I'll never forget during COVID, and I'm sure Tura, you remember this too. After a month or two of the big lockdown, right? The news every day was talking about all the animals that were coming out of the national parks, and people were saying, "Where did these animals come from?"
And I think it's happened every place in the world as well.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my God. Yeah, that's what lack of crowds will do.
Yeah, exactly. But we understand that to get in order to conserve animals or wildlife as such, people needs money, and the parks need money. And the only thing they get money is from the tickets they sell to the tourists. So I think it's about management, area zoning. That's why I'm repeat about the Indo-Chinese tiger in Hue Ka Keng, because Hue Ka Keng is a wildlife sanctuary. But within 10 years, because they are so close, so difficult to get in, that's why the right now we probably reach like 200 or 300 individual in Indo-Chinese tiger, want to become the highest countries, and the population bounce back really good. But again, it's almost impossible to access. Yeah.
I did participate in the night safari and the day safari. Part of a newspaper or an article that was for Better Homes and Gardens, I think it was. It was really good. I think they're going to make it. Once they get to the point where the animals are not afraid to come out and they're a little bit more relaxed, I think that'll catch on. I think it'll catch on.
Yeah.
Fascinating that the local Thais are now starting to go to the national parks in the home country, etc. But you also mentioned earlier on that more and more Thais are starting to travel overseas.
Yes.
So what are some of the most popular destinations, places that they're going to?
Well, of course, I think as a mainstream, Kenya, like Big Five, they're starting to go more in terms of wildlife and, birds, of course, Papua New Guinea, bird of paradise and all this stuff because it's closer. Wales, now they start to go to, Japan, New Zealand, some places, because also whale watching business has become popular everywhere in the world. But again, I think small mammals are still way back. Bats still way back. But tiger, cats, bear, megafauna. It's just starting to become a trend in Thailand, and of course, the African countries, they start to go more, even like India for a tiger safari.
When we actually met, we met in India.
Yeah.
And we were on a snow leopard trip, and I was blown away with that town, Leh, was filled with Thai people, and they were Thai tourists.
Yeah.
They weren't there to see the snow leopards, but they were definitely branching out into a pretty adventurous location.
I think that time it starts from, as I said, like photographies in Thai societies, Thai community, they're starting to get bloom. I would say it started to get bloom. And during that time, 10 years ago, it was all about landscape. Yeah, I think it's a trend. And now it's more accessible to wildlife photography equipment, gear and stuff. So now nature photography, birds, of course, become very famous in trends. And now they start to get to mammals one by one, bit by bit. Yeah. And everyone was surprised. Like, they asked us, "What are you doing here?" And when I and Coke say we are here for snow leopard, they was like, "What? What is?" They don't even know the snow leopard. Remember, Coke, on that night?
Yes.
They're like, "What the guy are you doing here?"
ซื้อดาวหิมะมันอะไรอ่ะ
Singapore, Malaysian, Taiwanese, they're starting to. Yeah, everything is starting. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I remember one of the things we haven't yet released, but we've been working on through Mammalwatching and through Rewild are some guidelines for ethical mammal watching. Really just to give to guides in different countries so that they can have something to show tourists who are getting a bit over enthusiastic. You don't get too close. You don't chase the animals.
Yeah.
And then we've done some cartoons. At the moment, they're very simple cartoons, but there's some words in English, French, and Spanish.
Yeah.
And there's some without any words. But I will send you those. Maybe even you can put them into Thai as well. Then you can give them to your clients, and it maybe just help a little bit in getting more this kind of ethical behavior that we all want.
Yes, well, lovely. Because one of the big problem in Asia now, I would say every Asian, the most unethic is like they like to feed. That's the thing. Right. They feed everything. Yeah. They feed everything. The bear, the leopard cat, like big cat, they feed everything. They try to feed and tame every single thing.
Right.
Yeah. So, big campaigns. I just got back from Japan like a month ago, even in the Hokkaido, because the accidents between photographers and the brown bear are more and more occur.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah. So the one thing I love, the phrase is like, keep wildlife wild. That's the thing. And there's a sign everywhere now in every Hokkaido's park that do not feed the bear and the fox, because they're feeding and the bear are getting used to humans. Because even Japanese, they don't know, because they are not serious wildlife watchers, and they don't know this kind of rules and regulations. Same as Thailand, that you feed a monkey, you feed the wild elephants, and then one day accident's gonna happen. So I think what you are about to do is very good, and it should be probably a goal. I agree, it should be a global campaign for it. That mammal watching, it has to be ethics, same as like birds. Yeah.
Good. Well, we'll try. Let's see if it's useful. I hope so. I just wanted to come back to this dolphin, the very long-beaked common dolphin, pinocchioensis, we called it. Yeah. So Bob Pittman showed me some pictures, I think maybe from you. And this thing, it looks like a common dolphin, but it also crossed with a river dolphin. It's got this incredible beak. Really, really interesting species. Is there any way people can go and see that or look for it? Where would they go?
2 or 3 sightings record that I have. It's around, we call Surin Marine National Park and Similans Marine National Park, which are on the Andaman side. Right. But unfortunately, there are no dedicated whale watchers or experienced whale watcher on that site, except for our team, which go only some certain part of the year. So you can go and you can take the boat, look for it, but I would say it would be difficult. You need an experienced eyes to find, and there are actually 4 or 5 species of dolphin in that area. It's just around these 2 marine national parks. Yeah.
Okay. Has it been seen more than once?
Oh, just myself. I've seen it 3 times already, and there are
Okay,
some
all right.
reports from the scuba liveaboard boats that they photograph some dolphins and they send us for ID. So it has been seen almost every year, 1 or 2 records of every year. Yeah.
Okay.
But we do not know it.
Counts on you guys to figure out how to see it, and there'll be a
Fingers crossed.
You'll do it. I'm confident. Coke, I already mentioned your website and your wonderful photography. You've also done some epic travel, and you had a particular set of trip reports when you were living in China that I remember very fondly, because you went to a lot of places I'd never heard of and began to open up Chinese mammal watching. One of those trips I really remember was your trip to the Gobi to look for camels in China. Can you talk a bit about that?
The 3 years I spent in China, I explored, I want to say every single province in the country. And I just had an amazing time. And people ask me to this day, what's my favorite, and I get this question a lot, what's my favorite place in the world for wildlife? And I almost always say China. Because of my experiences there. But the one trip that stands out to me as being one of the most epic trips I've ever done was the Xinjiang trip looking for the Bactrian camel. And that involved a lot of planning. We traveled with, I have a very good friend in China. We were just speaking today, as a matter of fact, for some trips he's going to do, Stephen Xu. And he and I have planned quite a few of the trips that I took back then. And he planned this one with me and a person named Dr. Li, who lives in Urumqi and Xinjiang. And now Dr. Li is the man, I'm sure everyone will remember this. He is the person who published that amazing picture of the Ely pika back in the early 2000s, where it went viral, or in the mid 2000s, it went viral. And he was the discoverer of the Ely pika. And he discovered it in I think the late 70s or 80s, a long time ago. Anyway, we traveled with him and his driver and a couple other drivers, and we had to get it was just me and my family, and we traveled for 3 weeks in the Taklakmakan Desert, from basically Gansu province all the way to Urumqi, cutting across the desert, going into Lop Nur Bactrian Camel Reserve. Now, part of that trip involved both being illegal. Entry into Lop Nur is completely off limits to foreigners. There's no way to get in there. But I better be careful how much I tell of this story. It's one of those. And put it this way, he was so well connected. We knew where all the patrols were at any given moment, so we could go this road and realize nobody's going to come and stop us. And he would make a satellite phone call, and we could go that road and have no problems whatsoever. And we had no problems. But we went into Lop Nur, and we actually got lost in that desert region for 3 days. We were completely lost. In that part of the world, there's no roads, so you're literally just cutting across desert and driving down the gullies and up the gullies, and it's an adventure. I mean, it's a 4-wheel drive adventure that people would just love to do. But honestly, after our second day of really not knowing where we were, I was getting a little nervous. We had plenty of water, plenty of food, and plenty of gas. But at the same time, it was really unnerving until finally on our third day, 72 hours of being lost, we looked in our spotting scope and we saw some trucks crossing the distance on what looked like a dirt track, and it was a dirt track. So we finally got some road and got out into civilization. But at that point, we had already tried to see the camels and had no luck in Lop Nur. We were without any luck whatsoever. We saw lots of evidence of them, very fresh tracks, even one fairly freshly dead one too. We saw, and it was a very disappointing experience there, because we spent a lot of money and a lot of time going into that area. However, on the way out of Lop Nur, we we were still actually in the camel reserve proper, and we saw a lone camel that had all the features of the wild type. You know what I mean? It's not furry. It was very not bald, but very not too hairy on the humps. The humps were erect, and it had all the characteristics of the wild type. And I took pictures of it. We were ecstatic. We had the camel. You know, we were super, super proud. I think I even emailed you from there at it a little prematurely. I said, "Hey, we got a camel," or something like that, and you replied, and then all of a sudden, my wife, she looked at the pictures when we got back to Urumqi. We were in Dr. Lee's apartment, and she looked at the pictures of that camel, and we were celebrating and all this, and she looked at the pictures, and on the cheek of the camel there was a tiny little piercing. It was a piercing. And at that moment, I realized, oh my God, that's a domestic camel. And Dr. Lee, I should never forget his look on his face. He goes like this, oh. It was ended up, most likely, we're still kind of theorizing, a feral camel that had been part of the tribes. There was a tribal, it belonged to a tribe, and the tribes there, they put a piercing in just this upper right quadrant of their flesh, and then have the bridle, I guess, the whatever you call it, the robe, come from there. And so it ended up not being a wild one, but a feral nonetheless. And we were about 200 kilometers away from any humanity, so it was literally in the right spot, but it was clearly, it had been around people before. So that was a disappointment. But that same trip, okay, we get back into Urumqi, and Dr. Lee says, hey, you want to go help me find a pika that people say is extinct, and I don't think it's extinct. And at that time, I didn't know about the Ili pika. And I said, of course, let's do it. So we went up to the Tiantian Mountains, the just glorious mountains in the far, far west of China. And we spent a day or so driving up to some of the highest peaks that you could approach on road, to a place where Dr. Lee had discovered the pika many decades ago. And we looked around, didn't see anything, but we did eventually find, in fact, it was Koki, my son, who found tiny little pika tracks on the snow. And Dr. Lee said, oh my God, that's it. He knew for sure that was the pika. And although we didn't see any, we saw a small animal move at one point, but we were not sure it was an actual pika, so we weren't getting too excited about it. Ends up, it probably was a pika. He went back the next year and actually rediscovered the species. He took the pictures. That's what went viral for the little, you guys know the picture I'm talking about, right?
Teddy bear pika, right?
That's it. Yeah, the teddy bear. Yeah. And it went super viral. National Geographic, because I was the only one who had a labeled picture online of that wasn't in Chinese. National Geographic called me, BBC called me. I got just barraged with phone calls and emails because it was on my website. And I put them all in touch with Dr. Lee, and he became quite famous for a period of time because of that. And it was just an amazing trip. I mean, getting lost, having to almost rediscover an extinct species, and I just couldn't trade that experience at all. I loved it. It was hard, though. My wife and kid were looking at me a couple times like, Dad, what'd you get us into?
How old was Koki?
You know, at that point, he would have been about 9 years old.
9.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. That kid, I tell you, he's still, as far as I know, the record holder of being the youngest person to see a wild panda, youngest non-Chinese person to see a wild panda.
So to wrap things up over here, so one final question for both of you. So what next? Where are you traveling to next, and what are your most wanted species?
Actually, I have so much more wanted species, but depend on places. But I mean, from what I've been traveling around the world for the past, let's say pre-COVID, especially this year, I've been thought to myself a lot, and maybe next year I would coming back and focus in Thailand, actually. I mean, as I said, I've been talking to many people lately, about, there are a lot of potential area. There are many places that I think it's still unheard, unknown of, both in the forest and on the sea as well. That I think there are many species yet to discover. I mean, for example, like now we still have quite a few reports from, we call a Hangus mountain. There's a higher elevations that go up to almost 1,500 meters near the borders of Thai and Malay, that there are some holy grail species that still exist. I can't tell which species out in open, but finger crossed, but they are still alive, that we thought it might be extinct, that type of level of things. And even in many places in the south, another site of Kangkajan that nobody's heard of, that's still access for public, which I think it would be paradise for mammal watching. So what I really gonna be focused on in the next couple of months at least, because the rain start to be finished, and I gonna lead many tours coming, for example the mainland clouded leopard tours and other stuff. So yeah, I think for next destinations, I will just going to be focused in Thailand, and for some really cryptic species like flat-headed cat in the south, for example, horse civet, sorry, not horse civet, the civet otter, also the pre-war squirrel, which is really rare in Thailand peninsula, that it has 3 colors variation instead of other colors that abundant in Malaysia. In Malaysian peninsula, it has all black patterns with yellow belly, but in Thailand peninsula it has 3 color, which is really rare to see. So that's what I'm looking for, like small and mammals, and also cave in the south, which has a lot of cave system that you can actually get in and have a look at some sort of bats. Yeah, so that's gonna be for me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Right, I'm penciling in a Thailand 2026 trip to capitalize everything we're going to learn. It sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I think that sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to piggybacking on some of that stuff too. You were talking about those mountains in the south tour. Yeah. Some of the birders, like Ian over at Bangkok, they've been doing some exploration up in there too.
And you got new species, rare species, like snakes, even reptiles, even birds. That would be really interesting. And nobody's doing it for mammals, so that's why I gonna go and plan to go after this rain is finished.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. For me, my next big trip will be with John and Charles. Are you on that trip too, to China?
Nope. Not to China.
We're going to go hopefully get the red panda and a couple other cool things. But that's only a 5-dayer. The next big mega expedition I'm doing is going to be Australia this summer. I've already basically booked everything within it that I need to book, airline travel and rental cars and all that stuff. But it'll be 54 days in Australia, searching for every marsupial that comes my way, and hopefully I'll have some of the luck that's on a lot of those trip reports that I've been reading copiously. But it'll be basically Tasmania, the Brisbane area, and Lamington National Park, and then Queensland for quite a few days, and then down over to Adelaide and Kangaroo Island for several days, and then the Kakadu area, and then down into the southwest. So it's an all-encompassing trip. I want to try to. Anyone who's followed my reports know I like to try to do the entire continent when I'm going any place. So it's typical for me to do something like that. It's overly ambitious, but it's normal for me. Having my schedule, people always ask, well, why are you going to Australia in the winter time? And it's real easy. The answer is simple and easy. It's because that's the break I get as a teacher. And it's, and I get a big 2-month break. So I tend to max it out. The second school's out at 2:30. I'm heading to the airport. And then the first meeting, I'm probably in September. The first meeting, I'm arriving in the airport 2 hours before I have to go to the meeting. It's pretty normal for me. So yeah, that'll be it. But my must-see animals, it's a pretty big list. I keep saying the mandrill is one that I really want to see and photograph well. And I know it's doable. A lot of folks have had some pretty good luck with that. And I just a matter of getting into Gabon, I think, for me to do something like that. And that's one of the African countries I haven't been to yet. And so that's pretty high on my list for sure. And then the Saiga. I've tried to see the Saiga now twice and been skunked, once due to COVID, so I didn't even get into the country. And another time in China where they had a remnant population in Xinjiang. We didn't see it there either. So it's, those are my two. And there's a longer list than that, but those are the two ones that just come to mind right now that before I die, I want to see those.
Oh yeah, talk about Thai list. What I really want to see that I will focus on the south is I want to find a decent place for the golden cat. That's the only cat that I did not see in Thailand. I mean, it was I don't cow, which is they walk past my height. That's 3 years ago, just a back of me, but I was sitting in a height. And the Malayan tiger, which is getting more and more reports from the villagers in the south, because Thailand has Malayan tiger in the Thai Peninsula. I really want to see that subspecies of the tiger.
I did see a golden cat in King Krachan once. Yeah, Koki saw that with me too. No photographs though. That's a problem with me and cats. I've seen quite a few species, but I have very few pictures of anything other than the big cats.
Well, that's a pretty good list to keep you both going.
Yes.
I have no doubt you'll see all of those things in the next few years, but it'll be fun to read your reports when you do. Tor, Coke, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and hear your stories. Really excited to hear how much has happened in Thailand in particular, the growth of ecotourism. As you say, not without its challenges, but a lot of positive things come with that. It's great so much has happened, but it's also really exciting to hear what is planned by you both next, and so much more to see in Thailand. It's an extraordinary country, but you guys are opening up the country more and more, week by week. We're learning more things, and I can't wait now to get back. I'm going to do this big bat tour of the south, I think, with Tor, by the way. I haven't told you yet, but we're going to do that, aren't we? Coke, we'll do something, I'm sure. So thank you both for stories of what's happened and what's to come. It's really great to talk to you.
It was a good discussions.
Yeah, thanks both of you. I've heard a lot about you over the years, and great to finally put faces to names. And it sounds as though you are doing some fantastic work over there in Thailand, opening it up for the rest of us.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sawadee krap.
Sawadee krap.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.